all about LLC versus sole proprietorship for baking business. Now, let me double check that we are set up. That's not what I need to be looking at. Few minutes late today. My apologies. Okay, perfect. I can see comments. Everything looks good on this end. So if you have anything you want to say today about the LLC versus sole proprietorship issue, go ahead and put it in the comments. We can discuss there. You can also send me personal, like a DM or something, if you have another question about this. I know some bakers get confused and it's a personal topic. You know, everyone's going to make a different choice. So I will definitely fill you in on anything that I know about the situation, my experiences, because I am not a professional tax preparer. These are simply my personal opinions based on my experience. I've been in the industry for about 16 years. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've seen, the way that I do it. It's going to be different for everyone. And then you can kind of use that information to help fuel your choices as you move forward. So I do want you to know that you should be contacting your local CPA, the IRS, or your local tax agency for questions about your situation, just to make sure it's the right choice for you. All right, now, as I mentioned, I'm Melissa Fryer with Build a Better Bakery. If you're interested in finding joy and less overwhelm and stress with your baking business, you just want things to go a little bit better, you want to be more successful, you want to feel like things are moving in the right direction for your business, then we should hang out more because I'd love to help you. Go ahead and throw up your hashtag replay if you're viewing on replay, or if you're like my friend Jessica, go ahead and throw up your hashtag live if you're here live. Now, the theme for March in our group and for Build a Better Bakery in general is cultivating the dream. Okay, that's our kind of overarching theme for this month. And one of the first aspects a baker starting a business, or even kind of in the first year or two of business, needs to consider is what type of business model do you want to follow when it comes to file taxes. After you bring in $400 in sales in the US, you're required to file taxes. So for most of us who are even baking just part-time, you're likely going to meet that threshold of sales. It just doesn't take too long to get up to 400. So today what I want to do is cover pros and cons to each of those two models. There are other models, let me also put that out there. I'm not going to talk about them today because they aren't super common. So if you are looking at a partnership or a corp or something, an S corp or something like that, that's something that I'm not too familiar with. So I'm not going to be talking about those today, but you can definitely contact IRS, read up on their website, get more information about those. Okay, so pros and cons, 2 common myths that I want to point out, and 3 important tax tips just to get you kind of in the mindset of some things that I think are important to do as you get ready to start filing taxes. All right. If you want to stay in the know about these lives, you can check the events in the group. I usually post a day or two before what we're going to talk about, but it is always at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here in the group. And you can get on the email list for replay links. You can follow us on YouTube for replay videos as well. Those are 2 other ways you can get them. You can also send me a friend request here on Facebook, and then I can invite you to the events as they are made. So it's a little faster. That's like the pre-invite option. And then I can send those over to you. All right, let's hop right in here. Again, post your questions if you have any. Hi, Cindy. Cindy's here, yay. Okay, number 1. Why do you have a tax status as a business? Some people are new to this, or they're just not really tax savvy. That's totally okay. A lot of people aren't. I don't know why I have a pen on my hand, but I do. So you're probably gonna have to look at that. Do the whole video. Okay, so why do we have a tax status? When you generate more than $400 in gross sales, not net sales, so gross, like the whole thing, it's not what you're taking home. It's after you've sold $400 worth of things, you're considered a for-profit business in the US. Other places aren't like that. That's how the US is. It's a pretty low threshold. Most of us in this group are likely in that group. This means that the government requires that you pay a portion of that business income. Okay, so not everything that you brought in, because you're spending money on your business too. So 30% of what you're taking home towards taxes that support your local schools, your local libraries, your federal organizations, Medicare, et cetera, right? Taxes are honestly probably a good thing, right? In most respects, they're going to support your community. So they're just saying after a certain amount of dollars, they would like you to start contributing to the tax, bowl for the tax pot, right? Now, when you work for someone else as an employee, you might not have noticed that they normally pay half of that anyway. So they're already paying about 15% and pulling it from your check before you even see it. That's something that, you know, some of us don't really we don't really think about that until maybe we're cashing our check or we're looking at that little section of deductions from your checks. So you're getting taxes taken out of your money either way, if you're doing it yourself, if you're working for yourself, or if you're working for someone else. Now, as self-employed, you'll pay closer to about 30% because you're paying your income taxes and you're paying your self-employment taxes, which is Medicare and what's the other one? Social Security. So you have to kind of pay all of them, which isn't great for the dollar signs, but that's how it's working. And it means that you should account for this, just a note, account for this number when you're charging for your time. So if you're charging X amount of dollars per hour, add 30% to it, right? And that's going to help you cover your taxes later. So just kind of keep in mind what's happening in the future with what you have to pay out versus what you're charging your clients. Okay. And then lastly, your tax status determines how you are taxed and how your assets are viewed, et cetera. So there is an important decision to be made. And today, again, we're talking about LLC versus sole proprietorship. Now let's hop right into the sole proprietorship. I would say this is probably the most common for small businesses and for baking business. Hi, Tio. Can't find this live on my laptop, only on my phone. Interesting. It's in the main group. So if you're clicking on the event, it's not going to be in there. The event is there to remind you that it's happening. And I usually post the replay in there. So maybe go to the main Build a Better Bakery group, the Bakery Business School group page, open that up. You should see it right there in the discussion thread as a black box with a kind of like a video start symbol. Okay, hey, Anita. All right. So let's hop in with the sole proprietorship model. This is, if you can kind of simplify it, this is like you are the business, right? You're not separating yourselves, like you are the business. For tax purposes, you can use your own personal information, like your own social security number, to claim your income and deductions. So it's very simplified. There's not a lot of separation happening. This means that everything that comes in and out of your business is accounted for at the same time as your other tax information. You can also get a free EIN number. This isn't one of my 2 myths later, but there's a myth that EINs cost money and you have to have someone else do it. No, go to the irs.gov website, apply for it there. It's free. You use that in place of your social security number if you don't want to use your social security number for business purpose stuff. So, you know, contractor 1099s and setting up wholesale accounts and whatever else you're using it for. You can use your EIN in place of your social security number. Okay. The pros to the sole proprietorship is I think it's just the least invasive, right? There's not a lot of any extra creation happening. You're kind of just saying, hey, I have a business. It's me that's running the business. Like, here's the income. It's not a lot of paperwork, extra paperwork, etc. It's simple to set it up, and it is the way that most sole owner bakeries and small businesses operate because it is simple relative to everything else that's available to the different models. So in fact, I wanted to point out that I've worked for 5 separate brick and mortars over the years, moving around with the military job my husband has, working for all these bakeries, and almost all of them were sole proprietors. It's just, and they had storefronts, right? Like, just because you have a storefront doesn't mean you have to have an LLC. Although we'll get to why that might be a better idea once we talk about LLCs. It's perfect for a low risk business, having a sole proprietorship. So if you're selling cottage food that's been approved via cottage food laws, that's a low risk business from my perspective, because you're following the laws that are set forth. Normally, there's not a lot of additional fees or even no additional fees or extra paperwork involved over what you need to report your income and deductions for the business. So there's not like inventory lists and other things happening you have to apply for and pay for. It's just kind of, hey, I'm doing this on this, this is a separate part of my normal income. And you can even use something like TurboTax Self-Employed, which is a very cost-effective way to do taxes if you want to do them on your own. and get everything taken care of easily in-house, right? So some people love their CPAs, want to use CPAs, please do that, right? They're there for a reason. They're really good at their jobs. You should be doing that. But some people need to just do it on their own, and that option would be there for you. Here are some cons to the sole prop. So for high risk businesses, you have no additional separation between you and your assets and your business assets. So you must weigh the probability that something's going to happen if your services or product has the potential to cause a lot of physical or financial harm or damage. So thinking about what you're actually doing and is it harmful? Could it be damaging? Weighing the pros and cons of the probability of that happening. Now, moving on to the LLC model, to talk a little bit about that. That stands for Limited Liability Company. If you've not looked into it, again, you can always go to irs.gov and read up on these different options. My opinion is this is the best if you have employees or multiple people working in the business in any capacity, and or you are working in a more high risk situation. With the LLC, you can take the step to separate your business into a separate entity from you, and it's a completely different taxable entity. So so you're thinking, okay, now there's more paperwork, now there's fees you have to pay for LLCs via the state you live in. If you leave the state, you have to liquidate and you have to change your status, and there's just more going on because it's like a whole other person, right? It's like a whole other thing. And it's not really in your personal category anymore. Now, this may help keep your personal assets safe, which is one reason I hear a lot of people do LLCs. If a customer wants to sue your business, right? They're not suing you, they're suing your business. But keep in mind that if you were the person who made the mistake and they can prove that it was you, not your business, but you might still be personally liable, right? It's like when you get to court, they're going to do everything they can to prove it was you and not your business, because if you're trying to protect your personal assets, they want everything, right? If something's gone awry. So your LLC might not protect you in that particular case. Again, just my opinion, my experience of hearing people talk about this, the pros and cons to these two types of models. And I wanted to note that after 16 years inside the industry, mentoring people, working on my own, working for other bakeries, within all of that, I have never met a baker that was sued and had to use their LLC to shield personal assets. I just haven't seen that. So I really implore, if you are that person, or if you have seen it, I know it'd be third person storytelling, but if you've seen it, I would love to know in the comments, because I want to know that it exists and to know that people are getting LLCs for a reason that actually exists. So please let me know. I know people get in trouble with Disney and stuff like that, but besides that, I just feel like copyright infringement is like the only thing that I'm hearing about. So anyway, put it in the comments if you have any stories like that. The other thing I want to bring up about LLCs is that it's fairly common to see something that's called piercing the corporate veil happen when people have an LLC. And that means somewhere along the way, something has happened to where they've crossed paths with their personal finances somewhere. They used the wrong credit card. They put money into the wrong account. They paid someone from the wrong account. Something happened, right? And they've used personal money and then claimed it and whatever. And that's going to negate the LLC, because you're crossing paths with your personal again. And it's super common. Lots of people do it. And it will not offer, my understanding is it will not offer protection if taken to court, because then they can prove it was you, right? You've pierced that veil. So you have to be highly diligent in separation if you plan to use the LLC model to protect yourself and expect it to work in the way in which it's sold to us, right? In the way in which people say we have to have one. Okay. Now the pros: you may have the ability to protect your personal assets in the case your business is sued for business-related issues, right? Pros: protection for your business if your employee makes a mistake. So if you have employees and other people working under you or with you, you can protect everyone in that way. And then protection for your business if you sell high-risk foods to masses. This is a big one. So if you're selling a lot of hot, cold foods, hot specifically, right? We remember the McDonald's thing with the coffee. That could be damaging to a person, right? Or if you're doing large wedding or catering events where there's lots of people involved, people could get sick, people could get hurt. You know, those are kind of more higher risk than just someone with a small bakery. Okay. Now some cons to the LLC. These are usually going to come with more fees. I've heard everything from $8 to, here in California, it's $800 a year. $800 a year. So it's usually state by state pricing. Everything about it is usually state run. So everything about it's going to be different. The paperwork, the money, what you owe, how often you have to see, you know, go to them and get paperwork done or fill things out or get checked in with them or whatever it is. And then when you move, you have to go through more fees and paperwork to set up different LLC stipulations or liquidated LLC. So it's not ideal for somebody in a military lifestyle like me. That's one reason why I've kind of shied away from it, because it seems like too much on top of everything else. And again, I haven't seen evidence that it's actually useful. People are actually using them. So I'll give you some recommendations of what I do. Again, do your own thing. You want an LLC, get one, please. But I'm just, for those people who think they have to, you don't. And it can be a hindrance to people growing a business when they move to an LLC without a steady, reliable income in place. So if I told you your first year in business, you have an $800 franchise fee, I think it's called a franchise fee from the state of California. That's a bill you have to pay that you might not have needed. That's a scary thing, right? So I'm not in the business of wanting you to pay for things you don't need, just putting that out there. And lastly, it can give a sense of false security to some, being that there are various instances that may remove the protection of the LLC if you're taken to court in a legal battle, such as receipts purchased on the different card, like we talked about, you being the direct cause of the issue, it can be proven, etc. So just talk to a professional if you're looking into it first. Someone who's not trying to sell you an LLC would actually be better if you can speak to them first to see for your specific situation like what makes sense. All right, I wanted to give you through a few recommendations before we talk about 2 myths and 3 tax tips. Personally, I find the following setup for a baking business is a great alternative to an LLC. Like I told you, the military lifestyle, just not great for it. There's just a lot involved if you have to move every 1 to 3 years. So I have personal liability and food insurance. They're 2 different policies. They're very extensive. One is $1 million policy, or I'm sorry, both are $1 million policies on in each respect for food and personal liability. I went through an insurance broker to get the best price, but they, you know, it's not cheap. It's actually relative to the LLC, but it's the insurance. And you'll still need insurance even with an LLC. So that's actually later. I'm going to mention that again. But LLC is not a replacement for insurance. So you're going to need both, even if you do the LLC. Number 2, a solid contract. And I know some people are like, I don't need a contract. These are my friends. I don't need a contract. I'm just selling cupcakes. I don't need a contract. It's too confusing. People don't want to sign it, etc. You don't necessarily have to have people sign it, but you need to have one that they accept before purchase. So that's the way I run mine, right? Is here's the contract. You're going to view it before you purchase an item. If you decide to send me money for an item, you're agreeing to this contract. Having, of course, written signature is preferred, but you can show that you've had that available for view. Just like when you check the box and say, do you agree to terms and services, etc., right? We have one in the shop ready for you too. So if it's just too much to think about setting up a big contract to cover all your bases, we have one that someone who sells just cookies all the way to wedding can use. It's comprehensive. It's what I've used my whole career essentially. And that's ready for you for download in the shop if you want it. There's also a mini course that walks you through how it's set up and how to specialize it to what you're doing, plus the contract. It's like a little video course too. That's available as well. So you can just let me know if you need those. Okay, and then recommendations, sole proprietorship status with a separate banking business account is still really helpful. So even if you're not heading for the LLC, if you can still set up a separate account for your business, you might have a separate credit card, you might have a separate checking and savings, etc., then that will just help with ease of record keeping. So that should just be something that you're doing with either. And then lastly, following cottage laws. and selling low-risk foods to avoid risky sales. The thing with the cottage laws is I'm pretty sure that if you get in trouble, your insurance might not cover you if they can prove that you were making illegal things. Okay. So following the laws is like kind of important when it comes to needing that coverage later on if something does happen. So try to avoid those risky sales. All right. Hi, Allie and Kelsey. Hey, Denise. Good to see you. Okay, cool. I think Tennille found it. All right. Let's talk about a couple myths. Number one, you're not legally required to have an LLC if you have a business. For some reason, I've seen people, comment about this. I mean, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you're legally obligated to have an LLC in any state. That's your choice, right? You can choose how you want to be taxed. You can choose which category you want to be put in. No one can force you to set up an LLC. That's my understanding. Again, if you know something different, you've seen something different, let me know. And the second myth is that LLC is not a replacement for or substitute for insurance, which is what I mentioned earlier. So if you do decide to do an LLC, you're still going to need insurance because if you can think about it, an LLC doesn't pay anything out. They're not an insurance company. What it's just it's legalese to try to protect you if someone comes after you, but there's no payout. It's only kind of protecting. And the insurance is what you put in a claim and you say, hey, something happened, you need to help me now. So they're two different entities and they do get expensive. So just know that they're separate. And if you've heard any other myths, I want you to put them in the comments too. Something that you've heard that you know isn't true, that maybe that's kind of in the same vein as what we're talking about today. And if you can provide like an IRS link or something that would help us get more information about what you're saying, I would love for there to be more information here from other people, the myths that you've heard that hey, that's not right, like this is how it is. You can definitely post those as well. All right, I just want to hit 3 important tax tips before we head off for the day. And these might be like, duh, but I just want to say them out loud. 1, keep all of your receipts. Just keep them. Even if you're shoving them in a drawer, just keep them and make it, if you can, on the 1st, just make it a routine on the 1st of every month, file them away. So just look at the dates. All of them for January goes into a January folder. All of them for February, I have like an accordion folder. I just stuff them in there. I do other things like I use one of those apps. It's the one I'm using right now. Fetch. If you need the referral code, it gets you some free money. I use Fetch right now. And I scan them in at the same time that I'm filing them. And I'm also writing on them if they're the business ones, etc. So I do kind of 2 or 3 things at the same time. But that's how I deal with the receipts. But if you can do it once a month, it's easier. It takes about like 15 minutes or so, maybe 20 minutes. So do that. Number 2, use a system to keep your information in order throughout the lifetime of the business if you can. It's just going to be so much easier to look back on the numbers. So that could be QuickBooks, Excel. Even if you use TurboTax Self-Employed, they store some information in there. You can look back year to year. So just something that's helping you kind of keep track, storing the info. I have referral codes for Fetch that I talked about. I also have them for TurboTax and QuickBooks to get you some savings. So if you are going to start those, let me know before you do so you can get that money off at the beginning. I don't think you can retroactively apply it. So if you already have them, I don't know, TurboTax Self-Employed and QuickBooks, might be a special QuickBooks. I'll have to check. But if you need those, let me know. I can send them and you can see if they work for you. All right. And then lastly, just something I want to hit home because a lot of people say, how do I reduce my tax that's owed? So from my understanding and what the IRS website was saying, the only way to reduce your business related taxes is to have more deductions. So that's not like a great answer, but that's kind of the way it is. So it means spending more money on the business that you can claim as a deduction. I highly suggest keeping thorough documents of what you're spending so that you can make every single penny count. You're not forgetting about 20 bucks here, 100 bucks here, that you know at the end of the year, hey, I'm gonna put all this stuff in so I can make sure that I'm not paying over my tax, what I actually owe. You know, we don't wanna pay over it, we wanna pay what we owe, but that's how you would reduce it, right? So that's where keeping the receipts and keeping information in order is gonna help out, okay? I know it's not fun, so it's enough tax talk for today. Something to know. Might not be the sexiest subject, but something to know. If you have any questions, let me know. It sounds like maybe y'all are just thinking, tax time like me. Yes, yuck. Yeah, it takes me like a whole day. If you'd like more info, deep tax info, there's another training that I've done on this information, just about specifically baking business things to keep in mind, how to record them, etc. Or more information on how to run and protect your business professionally from most things that you can think of. A lot of information. If you'd like more of it, more of what you see here, more of it at your fingertips, 24/7 availability, we have access to our expansive vault library inside of our mentorship program. I don't know if you've looked at our program before, but it's a nice little chunk on the internet where you can hop in and read up and watch up on lots of info from our coaching staff on everything from social media to photography to finances, baking business, teaching classes, baking, designing, growing your business, expanding your business, lots of stuff. Just we've touched on a ton of information over the last few years that we've stored in there for you. So if you'd like more info about becoming one of our elite members and taking a look, you can send me a DM or just even comment elite here, and I can just send you the link so you can read up on our website about what's inside, what's going on with it, and then we can get you in right away before tax time if you want to see the tax info that's in there. Okay, I am off to make some bread pudding for someone who's been hounding me for it and stock up my porch sale for the day. Okay, I will see you all later. I hope you have a great week. I'll see you here next week for another installment of our Cultivating the Dream theme this month. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.